Hey everybody, this is DayTraderRockStar, and this is the market radar for the week of March 9th. Now, the market radar is usually the first part of the HPS watch list that goes out to the members of Day Trading Radio. And we discuss the overall market conditions, the trades. We reviewed the trades we're taking or have taken this week, and we also throw out a few freebies that are on the watch list that go out to the members. So the market here definitely taking a downside move today, and it was not a surprise. You know, we had a lot of signals here pointing for a pullback, and today we had the jobs report out there, and we discussed this earlier this week that the potential for a sell the news event, and the sell the good news event is back on track because there's so much focus out there on the interest rates that any type of good report comes out brings the interest rates, maybe it gets people to think that they might raise interest rates a little bit sooner than scheduled. Either case, the market reacted. I would say this was one of those situations that played out. And I honestly believe it's going to be a short-term event. I mean, we rotated back down here on the 60-minute time frame. But to go back on the hourly and really break down important facts in the market, and I discuss this all the time in the markets, it's understandable. It's very important to understand what we call the wind in the sail or the bias in the market. And we use stochastics as one of our main indicators, and you could actually see the relationship between the price and the stochastics, unless you start to get embedded and you can start reading into that. But basically, once you start to see the momentum here start to flow downside or upside, that momentum here, like a rolling stone, generally continues. So we had this rollover the last couple of days. We saw that 60-minute time frame get a little extended, and then failed to make its way back up here, and we kind of failed out there. So this is not a big surprise. We actually were hedged into this pullback. We started hedging into a what looked like a retracement here of this wedge pattern. And again, like I said, we've been waiting for this to rotate back down. And the important part of this, I discuss this all the time on the radio, is understanding your basic market trending momentum, bias. And basically, we look at the stochastics as one of our main indicators to kind of gauge, how that's working out. And you can see the relationship between the price, price action and the stochastics. Usually an upside momentum here gets going, price is moving with it. When it gets embedded, it's usually a sign of strength, and when we start to break down, we can actually start to measure out divergences. That's usually a good sign of a reversal coming. So, and as that all plays out, we start to measure out the pivot areas, put together the measured move, measured patterns, and start to pick apart this market and understand, even on a shorter time frame, what is better to have, longs or shorts. So we were kind of hedged into this recent area up here. We had the calls and the SPXU common shares also, and I actually took those off. I am no longer hedged today. I took those off today, and a lot of it has to do with that 60-minute time frame. The daily is still negative. It is definitely still negative, but there's a couple of interesting things here. We actually had that rise in trend line, and we're actually coming back down to it again. Now, it's a big call here to say that the market's going to react Monday and just start heading back up, but we take profits and we move on, and even if the market wants to continue down, we'll probably reestablish some other positions to protect us from more downside. But we do have a good shot here going into the early part of next week. We did get oversold on the 60. We do have an underlying trend line on that stochastic area. Usually, the upward trend lines and the downward trend lines typically hold and show a bigger move. So we do have a small little, possible trend line underneath us also. If we actually just adjust this down a little, there is a smaller, or we could even put this as a bigger wedge down here, and some of the targets down here coming close to that 2,000 area. We'll call it 2,000, 2,035, 34. Not that concerned on that. We're more concerned on that 60-minute time frame and any of the shorter-term, moves that we're going to see. So the 60-minute is now oversold. The daily here, the potential channel line bounce on the stochastic, it's not something a lot of people follow. But as I show you in individual stocks, there's more times that this works out than it doesn't. So it makes us makes for an interesting setup early next week. And if we look at this as a kind of just a sell the bad or sell the good news, kind of good news, bad news routine playing out in the market again, this could be just a short-term event. and this can end up being an opportunity once again. I also discussed, the time frames, the daily, the hourly, 15, some cases, the 5 and the 1 minute. And we talk about the bigger time frames, how they trump each other. The daily is the strongest. And inside that daily, as we push down, that 60 might rotate back down, push back up, get overextended, overbought, and roll over, all as the daily here continues to move down. So we are going to look for that little bounce Monday, Tuesday, possibly Monday even. We see we're kind of flatlining here. We're going to go into some individual stocks right now. But that's basically up on the radar right now. We left off on the 5-minute chart, kind of set up here. We kind of overextended and oversold on the 5-minute. We've been chopping around, right on that small little trend line. And you know what? If we do push down a little bit further on Monday, we could set up for a little divergence if we gap down and we continue to move back up. We want to be on top of that early in the morning. I think Monday is going to be a good day to actually focus a little bit more on the futures. I did try to get some futures trades in today, and they worked out good. But there was really a bias to the downside, and that was probably the overall, direction to trade here into the downside, especially seeing that 60 and that daily here start to roll over yesterday. So let's go into what we traded today, and we're going to put a whole new watch list out today, and it's got a lot of work ahead of us. So we take a look at the HPS setup. We see today the PSA actually stopped out. I took that one out. But as we look back here, we see a lot of stocks that hit our targets this week. A few of them haven't triggered yet. Some of them are triggered and haven't hit a profit or a stop yet. And so we're going to go through each one of these right now. I'm just going to break these down for the PSA. Start off with this one. This is basically what you get, part of what you get here at Day Trading Radio. We identify the patterns in our watch list video, send these things out with the automated buy signals, the stops. Now, the PSA public storage, I like this area a lot down here. This is an interesting channel line, but we did break down here. I'm going to actually let this update here. I have to always remember on Friday sometimes. There we go. We did gap down, and there was some news out this. This was actually looking pretty good, but it did gap down this morning. I think there was some news of, what was the news? I don't know if it was insider selling news. I noticed a couple of things coming across the news wire, but it caused this one to gap down. It took our stop out. I got out, moved on. But basically, I think it was a great setup here other than the news coming out, and that's going to happen every so often. You're going to get some news. We had some news on Fastenal this week. But that seems to have recovered, and we're going to be talking about that one in a second here. So the PSA here broke down. Let's take a look at what we had here on Verizon. Now, Verizon started, we actually had this trade in Verizon. We took profits on it. Sometimes we take profits before it gets to its profit zone objective based on stochastics. So we actually did move up on this one. Got very close to taking it off, and it's pulled back since. So it's still active, but we've been out of this. We had a nice run off of our buy zone, and we took some profits on it. It's pulled back now. We'll probably reevaluate this and make a new chart on this. The Cabela's, I keep this one up here because it's been charting really good. We've been in this one multiple times. And this was a nice, beautiful trade. We picked up right off the lower trend line, and it quickly moved right back up into our buy zone, or actually our profit zone, and actually moved up to our trend line, pulled back a couple of days, and then fired up. Look at the strength in it today. Very nice looking stock. It continues to be really good. It was an ideal setup here. We call it X marks the spot. You can see the other times we've gotten into this trade, multiple times we've gotten into it. It's always worked out for us. So we just wait for that opportunity, and I'll rechart it out for you the next time it sets up, and you'll have it in the dashboard ready to rock. Next one up, we had Lexion. Lexion, another good tradable stock we took, and this would have worked out good too. It's a downward channel. Buy entry zone was 178.09, and our profit zone was right up here in that 187 area. We kind of gapped up there. We took profits and kind of pulled back, and now it's flagged back out. But it's completed its trade, got right up to our profit zone. And remember, when this area is hit, you get sent the alert to kind of update you that the price area has been hit. You can make that decision if you want to take your trade off there. Same thing if the stop has been hit, and the same thing as the buy zone if the buy zone has been hit. Right now it does look kind of interesting going into next week, so we'll probably actually go back and look at that on the next video and reset that one up. All right, next one is Navistar, and again, you can see the Navistar setup here was a trend line breakdown to a lower trend line. Sometimes we call that a trapdoor trend line, and we're looking for that bounce to bring us back up. Our target would be that retracement trend line. Whenever we break down to a good channel line or a trend line, the market tends to go back, retest that, and then move back down. So this was a standard setup here. I don't see this thing updated here. Let me see if we could update this again. Seems to be stalled out a little. All right, you can see it now. It popped right up into that level. It seems to be hanging around that level right now. But you can see also how that trend line is holding this holding that stock back now. Again, another good setup. We noticed strength in it last couple days, and it's been holding up pretty good. So look for this one to be on next week's focus list. All right, next one up is MDRX, all scripts. Beautiful downward channel was also what we call a coil stochastic channel breakout. A series of lower highs on the stochastics as we get grinded down there. And the underlying channel here represents the, there's the pattern underneath this. You have to have both of these. You have to have the coil and you have to have the channel underneath. And from that point on, our buy zone was triggered, got in it, and boom. Look at how the timing is perfect on these. When we establish a good trade, here again, you can see the past trades in this one. The buy zone into a wedge pattern, buy zone into a channel, and then we had that move back up. And now actually we had earnings out after that, and it's gapped back down. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not in that, and we're going to wait for that next setup on this. But it does look much better now. It actually looks better since we gapped down, and we can actually start to move back up. But you can see that the timing is important. It's just, you don't want to get into a stock that's kind of grinding down. You want to know when this channel has the highest probability of breaking back up or getting the biggest move possible. Instead of chopping around and moving up and moving down and moving up, we want to get blast off, and that's done by the coil here. That tells us exactly where our timing is going to come in, and we love that. And I actually have a couple coil stochastics on this week's watch list, so they're going to be a good timing trade for next week. All right, and the other one was Baidu. Great, interesting trade here. This is what we call a 1-2-3 pattern. We have an established pivot area up here that kind of reversals, it pulls back. We have a nice reversal candle put in the pivot area here, and this candle here puts in a pivot area here. So once we have these three pivots, you could actually put a straight line there, put a parallel line into there, and just wait for that trade to come back down. We program this into the dashboard, our trading dashboard that all the members use, and then we don't miss it if the price comes down to it. And you can actually see we came right down to this zone. Boom. We actually came right down to it. The next day it popped right back up. And it's, and that was a very fast trade. It was a very fast trade. But as you can see, after that trade was triggered, it actually drifted back down. You could almost consider this a retest of that buy trigger area, and then actually pushed right back up into the profit zone. So you can actually see that this channel is really holding up well. It's great to go back, but all these stocks are going to be taken off this watch list now because they've all activated, and there's going to be new setups going out. So you're going to lose all these now. The Mondelez, we're going to take a look at some of these right now. Now with the Mondelez here, you can see another 1-2-3 pattern, pivot, pivot, pivot. And we were waiting for this buy trigger to show up here. And as you can see on the HPS watch list, it says watching here. And watching means that the buy trigger or the stop or none of the targets, actually you have to have the buy trigger to activate before stop or profit activates. So the buy trigger has never been activated on this. It continues to say watching, and I'm going to show you why. So when I put out this alert, I said, wow, there's a great level. I'd love to be able to trade this one on this lower trend line. What happened here is we actually moved back up, and we kind of rallied out, and then actually now starting to come back down. So we're going to have to adjust this a little if we want to trade this again. We want to move this box down here a little, bring it back down under that 33 level, and just to kind of keep our eye out on the lower trend line if we want to set that alert. Right now, if it came down to this level, it would not be the same trade it would be back here. I mean, this would be a nice channel line bounce, but if it pulled back to that level now, nowhere near the trend line, and we have to rechart that. But it did not. It's still watching, so I'll rechart that for us. Now here is Kimberly-Clark, and as you can see, this was a real nice long underlying channel. A big 1, 2, 3. A nice pivot area here, a nice pivot area here. Retest of that pivot, and we go all the way back here. There's a pivot all the way at the end here. You can't really see it. I can move it over, and you could see it a little bit better right back here. And if you zoom in on that chart, you actually see that trend line even extends even further. But it makes sense to look for a bounce play off of this. And this has been just kind of chopping around, not much going on here. Popped up here, pulling back, but look what's coming into play here. Possibly next week we could have a setup here off of this buy zone. Now remember, if this area here gets triggered, 104, it still could move back down to that trend line, which is 101. So that's still like a three-point area. So the alerts will tell you that we're coming into the zone. It might not be an area that I get in. I might be watching it, but it's going to let us know that we're getting closer and closer to that trend line. And that's what the alert's going to do for you on this in this case. Now here's another situation where we had that price smart. Good recognizable channel, that channel line, that pivot area, this pivot 1, 2, 3. Of course, when we looked at this, same scenario we're playing out on the other one, where we could actually see a good trade here. But what happened with this, it actually pushed up and then started rotating back down and coming back down to the trend line here. So, I continue to update you during the week on this on the radio, day trading radio, and and tell you that this buy zone really should be adjusted and being put down here in that 73 area. This was out yesterday, so look for this to be that buy zone in that 73 area. And then today, as you can see, we had a huge candle. We came down real close to that trend line, so this looks pretty good now. It does look pretty good. I would adjust the stop here a little, because if it did pull down to that trend line, you want to be able to trade that trend line. I want to take a look at this other one, the ESRX, which is on the watch list, but I want to take a look at it a different way. You can see we recognize a nice flag on this. We weren't oversold, which typically we look for that to happen. Also, it's always good to look for reversal candles. I mean, there's so many pieces, moving pieces that we want to find to get ourselves a real high probability setup. So in some cases, I will look at, instead of a setup where we get everything oversold, I look for strength in the market. We actually put a buy trigger at 85.50 on this one. And what happened here, as you can see, it actually pulled back off of that, and it stayed. That 85.50 just was not triggered. We pulled all the way back and actually gave us a nice reversal candle, started pushing back in. And because this was in here, we finally then kind of pushed through that 85.50 and got and moved back up here. Now starting to pull back. So if we take a look at that on the HPS site, you could actually see what was drawn out for you. And same thing here basically happens. So when you see a setup like that, and it's usually a buy trigger, we're looking at a buy on strength and a fast profit here. If it doesn't trigger and it pulls back down through the stop won't be active. All right, so it'll still be a valid setup if it does take out that trigger. So you can actually see it pulled all the way back here, channeled out, and then came back up here and finally broke out of its buy zone there and pushed right up into the profit zone and then reverse. So this was a really interesting setup. It worked out fine. I did not take this trade. There can only be in so many. But it worked out good, and we just kind of look at that. Then the Mondelez, MDLZ, again a different look at that. We're going to look at that one in a bit. The Occidental Petroleum, oil sector stock. I had this one down as a. Let's take a look at what we have on it. another buy trigger, looking at breaking into the gap and just closing that gap. And what happened was it pulled back. It was it just hasn't been triggered. And then right here it triggered. And it didn't get any follow through. That happens on occasion, and it finally came back down under the stop. So it did trigger the stop on this. We're in this one. I haven't been trading the oils too much. But I am definitely going to talk about the oils going into next week. I am interested in a few oil stocks going into next week. ExxonMobil I'm interested in. HP I'm interested in. We're going to get into a whole list of good setups going into that. So that's the watch list from last week. We're going to take off all these. You're going to see, on the HPS watch list for members of Day Trading Radio, you're going to try to get some brand new ones up for you. And there's going to be a few short ones up there for you, too. And again, we look at the lane divergence to the short side. A couple interesting ones I'm just going to show you right now. And we'll break those down in the next video. But interesting that I noticed Disney setting up as a lane divergence yesterday. We talked about this, and I was like, well, that's a hard stock to kind of go up against. But the fact is here, and this is one of the signals that we look for, is that rising price level, higher high, yet we kind of crossed down here on the stochastics. We kind of failed to make new highs. So we had that divergence. And from that point on, we started dropping off. And that divergence is still there. And we also had one in BRCM. And both of these really played out well. I mean, even though the market came down, the fact is, when you see the divergence, you will see the directional, shift in the price. And even on a stock like Disney, which that's great to find those divergences. I look for the buy divergences, and I look for the sell divergence. This one has two of them. We have a buy divergence here, taking out the recent low and the higher low, and you can see the move. And then we had the sell divergence, and now we're starting to pull back. So, it makes sense to sometimes wait for these setups. This is a setup that I tend to just kind of like to wait for. I mean, I do a lot of research, and I want to get that research out to you. But when it comes down to it, I want to play the game. I want the game in my, and play it according to my rules. So, it'd be interesting to see how far this one pulls back. It's still an active setup, possibly for a short here. So going into kind of a recap here, going into next week with the S&P here kind of rolling over on the daily, but the 60-minute time frame here just getting oversold again. We could see an early pop Monday, Tuesday, but the bigger trend is down, and we're going to take it on a tighter time frame. We're going to take advantage of the futures, and that's about it. I'm taking a look here. Let me see if I can bring up my tradeometer here, because I'm looking at it on the other screen. Well, I'm not getting the backfill I want to go all the way back at the end of the day, but this is just going out since 2 o'clock, and I can't backfill it any further because I just restarted it here, and we have a 3-hour backfill on that. But if you keep it up and running, you'll see all the data on the other screen, but I can't capture that on the thing. But I just wanted to point out that even though we had some good selling today, we did have some really great signals on the tradeometer, on the NQs, the ES, and also the YM were really pretty much all in tune. We had a little flush earlier in the day. Let me look back over here on the other screens. But even in that flush, we kind of, about 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, we had a very steep sell-off. But the micro moves on there were pretty decent. But we'll talk more about that going into next week. We're going to be focused on that a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to send this video out, and we're going to get started on the HPS watch list video. We have some great setups there, and if you're not a member, please check it out. We're actually having an open house right now. That means if you come to DayTraderRadio.com, you'll see a banner on the front site. You can just log into and get all the premium services, and we're going to keep that open until about March 17th. So you have a couple weeks at least, to hang out in the room and see the dashboard and trade along with all the traders. So definitely come over, check it out. There's an open house going on right now. No credit card or nothing needed like that. All you have to do is just sign up, get your password, and you're good to go. So stop on by. And I'll talk to you Monday in the markets. Actually, before I do that, let me actually go over here and show you exactly what we have going on here. I want to sign out. So when you do go to the site, this is what I wanted to show you. You see that open house banner right here for Day Trading Radio. And what you want to do is just click on that.
Life is
and it's going to bring you to this page. Just type in your name and your email, and in your email address you'll get the password and the login instructions, and as simple as that. All right, so go to daytradingradio.com, click on the banner there. Not that's the indicator pack. Right here, and you're good to go.
Life is unfair. We know unfair. In fact,